not that I want to go to confession here on the air, but
don't.
I'm not.
This is not the place.
I'm not. I promised my wife I'm not going to go to confession on the air. But, it's when you think of pride.
Right.
And that's somebody who has a totally inflated sense of self. And when I read like a definition of pride, it's something that doesn't necessarily jump off at me and says, oh, that's my sin. I mean, I know that it's, and we'll talk about this, but like the root of sin and pride's present in all the other sins. My point is this though, Father, when I read your chapter on vainglory, that had a very different, it resonated with me very differently than the word pride.
Correct.
And
it's the property of pride.
Yes, and I wanted you to talk about that because I even said the word to myself very slowly, vain glory, like I'm glorying in a vain thing, wanting recognition, wanting reputation. It's very different than just thinking more of myself. In fact, a lot of people who are seeking vainglory are very insecure, have low opinions of themselves.
That's true. That's true.
And so I'm just saying that it's drawing that distinction between pride and vainglory, it really helped me reflect on vainglory as something to be confessed a whole lot more often, because just something about how you described that felt much more personal to me than just regular old pride.
Well, we have to keep in mind that there's vainglory and there is a virtuous desire for glory. A lot of people conflict the two. Sometimes if you want some recognition that's always wrong. No. Children need affirmation. Young adults need affirmation. We all need, at certain points in our lives, affirmation about our goodness. That's what husband and wife are doing, really, and not every day, mind you, but from time to time, I really appreciate you. I really love you. I think well of you. You mean something to me. I may not use those words, but my attitude indicates all of that. You see, and that's just the way we are. That's not sinful. That's reasonable. It's when you start yearning for adulation and constantly orientating your life, looking to what. Like one time, an entertainer I knew was playing the accordion in a concert, and so people were clapping and yelling, and he did this, and then he finally did this
with his hand, stopping with one hand and bringing it to with the other hand.
I want more.
Yeah.
And so that can happen with but there is, as I say, there's that reasonable side. It's reasonable, but it's not talked about too often.
Yeah. So vainglory. Everyone hears pride and says that's the root of all sin, but you have a different explanation of the queen and the, what was the, I'm sorry.
Well, the root would be, following St. Thomas, would be avarice.
Because I think 99% of like well-formed Catholics would say that pride's the root of all sin.
It depends on your definition of what you're talking about.
Right,
okay?
right.
Pride is called, in St. Thomas, called the queen. She governs the vices, because if I have a high opinion of myself, of my talents, of my glory, of my importance, of my this, of my this, of my this, well, then I necessarily get angry when I don't get it. I necessarily am going to demand more material things. I necessarily demand more from you. I necessarily demand more appreciation of my sexual prowess. I demand better foods. You see how pride will interfere?
Yes.
So that would be the attitude of the pride. But now, when it comes to looking at the teleology, the end of avarice being the root, well, since we're bodily creatures, we necessarily want material things. A lot, excessively, too much. And that, in turn, also leads to these other sins as well. So both avarice and pride can lead to all these other capital vices. That's why we call one the root and why we call the pride the queen.
Oh, it's a better distinction. I really.
Is it wrong to say that pride is the root of all? No. You just explain what you mean. This is Thomistic terminology, that's all.
No, yeah, I love it. Now, daughters. You want to talk about daughters of vices? Help us, because it's a fascinating topic. There's a whole lot of them, but just give us an overview of that.
Well, pride doesn't have any daughters. Pride just, Thomas just simply says it has consequences with God, and then it has consequences with oneself, over inflating oneself, etc. It's the other vices that produce other vices, and there are 44 of them.
Wow.
And I can't remember them all.
All right.
I have in my briefcase somewhere.
But
a copy.
Pride doesn't have the vices, but vainglory. Pride doesn't have the daughters, but vainglory.
Vainglory does, correct. And they all have them, and they all come down to disordered reactions to either people or to things. And that would be the more easy way of understanding these daughters. But then going through one by one, I don't have a perfect memory in my mind. I have a wonderful outline in my briefcase of like this, a piece of paper like this, with in the middle is pride, and then the
branches,
the branches around, and then the daughters. And some of them are 8. Some of them are 6, depends on what they are. It comes down to bad language, insulting people, or talking about people behind their back, or loving the things of this world to the exclusion of the next world. That's one of the vices. That's one of the daughters of lust. See.
Well, you speaking of lust now, just a minute. So that you said it. I actually only flagged one passage to read.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's just, I don't remember exactly. It was talking about things in the wake of lust. And you said when lust takes over a person's life, it can become a kind of anti-form or inner force working against all the virtues. Vainglory comes in the wake of lust in the form of desire for a well-paying career, which works against the more mundane yet important responsibility of raising a family. Then there's the unreasonable desire to be more important than friends and neighbors. When this does not happen because of a lack of funds, then envy comes crashing into the soul. Like, you do such a good job at explaining how these vices follow one after another. And in the wake of lust, all these other things come.
Bedfellows.
Bedfellows.
That's another word I like to.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And these things are not isolated; they're connected.
Yes, and I wish I had my piece of paper that had all the vices listed, but it's there in my.
That's all right. That's all right. So boasting versus vainglory. This was just another distinction that I found kind of fascinating.
Right. It's a proper. It flows. It flows. If I think, if I'm doing all I can to make sure you know that I am a master of sacred theology, you jerks out there, and I'm going to show off myself, and I'm going to produce all in front of my door. I'm going to list all my publications. I'm going to list all my awards, so you fellas know how important I am. See, I'm boasting with immaterial, not verbally, but I can do that verbally too. Yeah. How do you know what you're talking about? I'm the one that has a doctorate in theology. You're just simply a novice here. Although, in fact, God may give the novice more grace than he's given me. That's because God is God.
I just love the distinction. Like, boasting is based on your view of yourself, and vainglory is your desire for recognition. It's just the clarity of thought here is just.
That's not me. That's Thomas.
It's just masterful, though. Hey, thanks guys for checking out the Conor Gallagher Show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment, or whatever you got to do to support it. And I appreciate that very much.